Hey, Keith Carty, Dirty Deeds Industries. Today, we are going to be installing upper control arms on this beautiful 2007 Toyota Tundra. We're also going to do an instructional how-to video of a quick rundown of alignment geometry and how to quickly align and or tell if your truck is aligned or not. All right, so here's the JBA off-road upper control arms that we're gonna be installing today. Actually a very awesome packaging, good looking product for sure. We're gonna also show you how it corrects the geometry of the truck as well. Comes with the upper control arms. And one thing to notice, look at how awesome these bushings are. You can see little channels right here for grease to come in. So you grease the Zerk fitting here between the two bushings, the bushing here and here, and the grease follows inside of the bushing, comes through these channels here, and then it also greases these areas. So you should minimize the squeaking pretty substantially there. Also comes with bolts to hold the anti-lock brakes wiring right here. And then washers that go out here to hold the grease in and center the arm. And then some grease. We'll probably go ahead and skip using this though, and just go straight to the grease gun that the customer has provided us with right here. All right, so what I wanted to show you guys was the way the alignments kind of work on these trucks. You can see these alignment cams here. You can see how they're an eccentric. So essentially turning the cams will push the arm in or out. And let's just say you took the front cams, pushed them in all the way, the rear cams push them out all the way. That would ultimately move the ball joint forward, right? Which would cause the spindle to lean back just a little bit, giving it positive caster. And that's what you want, as much positive caster as possible. Typically what I'll do is I'll push the rear alignment cam out all the way. And as you can see, that has already happened here. And then this front alignment cam is out just a tad as well. But then you can see on the driver's side, this rear alignment cam is straight up. And then this front alignment cam is out just a tad. So this side, the driver's side, has a little less positive caster, which causes it to not pull to the right, as the alignment tech's theory. We like to set them up equal from side to side. So we're gonna go ahead and reset these alignment cams before we even start this job, because we know that's how we're gonna want them. We're gonna give it as much positive caster as possible by setting the rear alignment cams all the way out and the front alignment cams just slightly out. We'll do our upper arms, which will give us even more positive caster. And then we'll set our toe and we'll center our steering wheel. All right, so with the lower alignment cams loose, you actually loosen this nut right here. And then you loosen this side from the bolt. This is the front, you loosen it from the bolt. So what we're gonna do now is we're going to move the rear alignment cam to lengthen the rear of the arm as much as possible. So as you can see, that is all the way out right there. We'll use the notches that Toyota puts in their arms, or in their eccentrics, to make sure that we've got both sides equal. And we can go ahead and, we're just gonna tighten it down just a little bit. We want the suspension to settle before we do our full tightening on it. But this just to kind of hold it in place until the rest of the job is done. It looks like the last alignment tech that worked on it has already moved the front alignment cams out some. We're gonna go ahead and pull those out just a tad more. This truck's lifted pretty high. And then we'll add a little bit of torque into the bolt just to hold it in place, so when we take it off the lift, it doesn't move on us. Our 2-post lift isn't set up yet, so we're going to do the upper arm swap on the ground. The customer has already replaced the coilovers with these nice Toyota coilovers. So now we're just fixing the issue that arises when you lift the front of a Tundra without upper control arms. The way to fix that is with upper control arms. All right, so with the tire off, an often overlooked step is a very important step, as a matter of fact. This line right here for the ABS sensor is about 200 and something bucks at Toyota. You want to get that out of the way so you don't destroy it. So let's go ahead and remove this line next, completely out of the way. There we go. So we're going to pull this up out of the way. There's just no chance of the wire inside ripping. Super important. Not a cheap part to replace. Then we're going to go ahead and ratchet strap the spindle, because if you don't, the CV joint will pull apart. When we disconnect this ball joint to get this arm out of here, we don't want this to just freely fall out. We want it to stay in place. All right, so we're going to want to take off this castle nut, but not all the way. You just want to leave a gap between the spindle and the castle nut. And we're going to whack this with a hammer to slightly ovalize that joint. It'll spit it right out. You don't want to completely get rid of the castle nut though, because then it just pops out on you and you don't have control of it. See it just pop just now. All right, so as you can see, the JBA upper control arm is just slightly shorter. That's going to give us a little bit more negative camber so we can focus more on the positive caster with the lower alignment cams. So based on this knowledge now, which I did not have before I pulled the stock upper off, we may have to readjust our alignment cams. The front cams we will put straight up and down instead of slightly out. The rear cams we'll go ahead and keep all the way out. That way we get as much positive caster as we can possibly get out of it. All right, so we're going to apply a liberal amount of red Loctite on that bolt. You do not want this bolt coming loose, and they will come loose no matter how much you torque them when you use upper control arms, aftermarket uppers. So this is going to be the funnest part, is threading this upper control arm back into the truck. All right, so with both sides now installed, tires back on the ground, we're gonna go ahead and show you guys how to check your alignment and see what needs to be done. So we wanna reset the front end and see how it rolls down the road. So I'll show you what I mean by that. So we've got our 2-foot level here. We just want to make sure that we're touching the tire on the same spot. So we've got these knobbies on these tires here. We don't want to be in the bulge of the tire. If we could, that would be the ultimate way to check, but since we can't because the bulge will skew the reading, we're just going to go on, what's this, maybe 2 o'clock and 5 o'clock, right there on that bulge, or right there on that knobby. As you can see, the bubble is now touching the outside line, which means we've got negative camber, which is good because the problem was before we were out of adjustment and we had positive camber. So as I suspected, we're going to need to bring those front alignment, eccentrics into this a tad. This one looks like it's maybe a little bit -2. Let's double check. And it is, which again is perfectly fine. And I'll show you how to correct that. Let's check toe real quick. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to know where we started at least and be able to make each side equal. So I always use a little whiteout here. We're just going to draw a line across the outer tie rod, the nut, and the inner tie rod. We'll go ahead and do the other side. And then the hardest part here is breaking this loose. You have to hold the outer tie rod or else you'll break that outer ball joint. Okay, you can stop. So we're going to take a couple turns on this jam nut, just so we've got enough adjustability to do whatever we want with these inner and outer tie rods. So based on how towed out we were before we put this back on the ground, I'm just going to give it 1 full turn on each side in. So clockwise on each inner tie rod to shorten it, which will turn in, it'll pull in the toe. There's 1 full turn there. And 1 turn there. So we'll go ahead and put it back on the ground and figure out what our toe looks like, figure out what our camber looks like. Okay, so we've pulled the truck back, we pulled it out, we pulled it back in to reset it. And as I suspected, towing it in a tad has caused the negative camber problem to go away. As you can see, it's just touching the outside line. That is the maximum negative camber that we're going to want, which is fine. That's a great place to start. Again, just touching the line. So that's just slightly negative. We're shooting for slightly negative or 0. And let's go ahead to this side. And as you can see, we are also just slightly negative. So let's go ahead and check toe, see how that worked out by just doing one turn on the inner tie rod. So we are at 76 1/4. .76 3/8. So we're towing in an 1/8 inch, which is actually ideal. So this alignment is set. It's a matter of, we're going to go ahead and tighten the alignment cams now, and then we will center the steering wheel on the road. So I'll show you how to do that. All right, so as we can see, it's straight. Now I've got to make a turn here, but as you can see, the steering wheel is definitely not centered after doing the tape measure alignment, which is perfectly fine. You can see that the wheel, in order to make the truck go straight, we have to favor it to the left side. So what that means is we need to turn both wheels to the left side, if that makes sense. So while the steering wheel is favoring the left to hold the truck straight, that just means that we have to, that's literally telling us which direction we need to turn the wheels. Being that this is a front steer vehicle, what we need to do is lengthen the driver's side tie rod and shorten the passenger side tie rod, and that will turn both wheels to the left, and then that will make it so that the steering wheel doesn't need to be turned to the left in order to make the truck go straight. Okay, so we've tested the alignment. We've got the camber, caster, and toe correct. We've got the steering wheel centered. I thought it was a good time to show everybody how the upper control arm actually makes a difference in the truck. So here's a stock control arm. As you can see, it's flat on the ground. Front and rear pivot points are equal height. And so when you just simply pivot the control arm as if it's in the truck, the ball joint, you can see, just goes straight up and down. That's the top of the spindle. So imagine the top of the spindle just also going straight up and down. Well, with a Tundra, the front pivot point is further from the frame rail than the rear pivot point is. So it's sitting in the truck more like this. And as you can see, now that ball joint doesn't just go up and down, it also goes slightly forward and slightly backwards. So when you lift the front of your truck, you're essentially going like this, and the ball joint also moves forward, not just down, but also forward. And now you lose some of that positive caster, and your steering wheel doesn't center, and the truck gets it starts to wander and drift and things like that. So that's the point of upper control arms, is they allow this ball joint to be in a different location instead of it being in the stock location and yet down and forward. Control arms will either take the ball joint and physically move them back, or in the case like we saw on the JBA upper control arms, they move that ball joint slightly in. Now when you do that, what it does is it gives you that negative camber that you need that you lose when you lift your truck, and it allows you to build the caster into the lower control arms, which we did in this case. Either way is a valid way of correcting the geometry, whether you're moving the ball joint in or you're moving the ball joint back. It's just a matter of how do you align it after that. So we'll go ahead and do one more test drive in this Tundra to show the steering wheel being centered, and that'll be it for the installation and installation of the JBA upper control arms and alignment. All right, so we're going down a country road, slight right tilt on that road. We've got this steering wheel pretty well perfectly centered at this point. So that is how you install JBA off-road upper control arms and then properly align it where it will not wear the tires. It has plenty of positive caster and the steering wheel centers when you let go of it.